record. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Organize Your Closet and Your Life Will Follow. I am seriously excited today. I have an amazing guest, Erin from Goldifarms, the famous Goldifarms food forest from the central coast of California. Erin, when I think of you, what comes to mind for me is syntropic agriculture, those beautiful berms you created for your plants. I think of, let me see, what else do I think? I think of there's one video you did on sun gazing, which was so profound, and I absolutely loved it. That was truly amazing. And yeah, I'm so happy to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I really appreciated you reaching out. And yeah, I kind of forgot I did some of those videos. It's been a while. So yeah, thank you for
The
reminding.
other the other one that really sticks out to me is your keyhole pattern. I absolutely love that keyhole pattern. Uh, like the process that you do for creating your garden was amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's Goldie Farms is a food forest in a California suburb. And like you mentioned, the keyhole designs and a lot of this is inspiration from permaculture designers. And then we've been out here experimenting. We now have over 100 fruit trees, shrubs, and support species on a 1/3 acre property. But the food forest actually is only 1/10 of that because we have the house and the driveway and the garage. So it's really a 0.03 acre space that we've just packed in and made the most of. Starting with very poor soil, very little rainfall, especially in the beginning. And so, yeah, if you can imagine, it was a cleared cut property sand lot that was full of garbage and concrete, very shallowly buried that we
Right.
discovered. And over the past 5 years, we've been transforming it into a thriving oasis using the permaculture design methods that you mentioned and just a lot of love and dedication and passion.
The other word that comes to mind when I think about you and your beautiful videos is the word consortium. Consortium. I remember you talking about that, and hopefully that'll come up in our conversation today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, friends, we are here with Erin from Goldifarms, and we are going to dive into the questions. Erin, thank you so much for taking time to, answer all these thoroughly. My first question to you is, what inspired you to embrace permaculture, and how has it changed the way you see the world? And I love your perspective on the world, so I can't wait to hear.
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to be a UX designer. So I designed software and never imagined myself in the space of land restoration. But I had a journey with chronic illness that led me down the rabbit hole. And what I found on the other side was this deeper connection to nature and ultimately healing. And now it's interesting, kind of coming full circle, where I set out to heal myself and now am on this journey of healing the land. Um, and I think that's how life works in a lot of ways. Even thinking, okay, how did this really all begin? When I was a kid, I grew up in the suburbs of Indiana. And at that time, it bordered very rural Indiana. It's evolved and changed now, but growing up I was outside a lot, building forts with sticks and eating wild chives. And I raised ducklings as a kid, and they followed me
Oh,
everywhere. And but then as I got older, like most kids, school started to take more of the forefront. And I was indoors after school doing homework. And around age 14 or 15, I just was not well in a lot of ways. And I was really struggling mentally and emotionally. And I was sent to see a counselor. And then that counselor sent me to see a doctor. And I was put on antidepressants. I was diagnosed with a chemical imbalance. And that really just set me on a different path than the one that I was on as a
How
kid.
old were you when that was diagnosed?
I was 15.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I was
God,
15.
what an age to have to go through that.
It's young, I look back and like I was a child. And so at first they helped until they didn't. And so I was put on more and then different ones and eventually was diagnosed with major depressive disorder and anxiety. And fast forward 30 years until I'm 30 years old. So 15 years later, I'm now on max dosages of multiple medications. Um, I was hospitalized at one point. I was getting my
Mm,
liver checked regularly. Um, and, on the outside, there was a lot of things in my life that looked really successful, but on the inside, I felt very broken, and I was being told that I was um, broken, and I was really kind of losing hope. And kind of before I go more into the story, I do just want to share that, none of this is medical advice, and
yeah.
all of this is just my story.
Right.
So I don't want to downplay other people's experiences. And especially because mental illness is very serious, it's very complex, and everyone experiences the world differently.
Right.
So this is just my story to share what motivated me to create a food forest in my backyard. And I think it helps also illuminate a larger story of what humanity, a larger story that's happening to humanity right now.
Right. Right.
Um, but yeah, at 30 years old, I felt really desperate to change my life. Things weren't getting better in terms of my mental health, despite following all these psychiatrists' protocols. And so I came across a book at the library of all places that was written by a doctor who suggested that maybe depression wasn't the problem and that maybe my body wasn't broken, that it was working perfectly, and this was a symptom that something was wrong, that something else needed to change. And so in this book, the doctor suggested a 30-day protocol. And it
Wow.
was whole foods, no sugar, no vegetable oil, no what I now call industrial foods, just as close to natural garden state food as possible. And I was pretty skeptical because throughout this 15-year ordeal, I definitely asked, like, should I be eating different? Should I be? And was told that, of course, exercise is good, but that this was a mental illness that was never going to go away. And that the only real treatment that was going to work for me was medication.
Oh my gosh.
Um,
That is heartbreaking that somebody would give you that information.
Yeah, I mean, it was a story I was told so many times that it
Oh,
became my story of
yeah.
I'm a broken person. This is just the only because I had a lot of people in my life saying, "Hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that?" And there were many times I did try to go off medications, and I'd have these terrible relapses, and it reinforced the story of I'm just I was told at one point I lost the genetic lottery and just had
Oh my
bad
God.
genes. And um, so,
That's shameful that people are saying this kind of stuff to people. I mean, it's just
yeah, and
terrible.
unfortunately, I think it's part of a greater story of the world that nature can be controlled, that all of us need to fit into these forms. And if you don't fit in that form and you're not acting the way you're supposed to act, that you're somehow defective and need to be,
Right.
either remedied or discarded. And we see that a lot. And it's good to know that healing is available. And, I was skeptical, but I thought, okay, 30 days, I'll try it. what will probably happen is I'll go back to coffee and sugary snacks and back to my normal life. But
Yeah.
I was just so desperate to try
And what age were you
change.
when you were trying the 30-day?
Yeah, I was 30 years old.
Okay, okay,
So
good.
I
So,
had spent my whole 20s in just going through this journey. And yeah, hit 30 and I'm like, okay, I have a successful career. I have a master's degree. My life looks really successful on the outside, and on the inside, I just am not wanting to continue living this life. And so something needed to change. And so I started this 30-day protocol, and the first 5 days were horrible. I thought
mm,
I was coming down with the flu.
oh,
I dreamt about ice cream and pizza. I was having serious caffeine and sugar withdrawals. Uh,
wow,
and pushed through. And by week two, I just had massive changes. My sense of doom and dread was starting to go away. My blood
wow.
sugar was starting to stabilize. I felt clear.
Oh my
I felt
gosh.
just better, like just had energy. And that's when I started to realize, oh my gosh, I think the food I've been eating has been poisoning me.
Yeah.
And then I started asking, what else is maybe poisoning me? And so I start really following these protocols more carefully, which included cutting back on screen time,
Mm,
waking with the sun, walking barefoot on the grass, grounding, and then, talk about organize your life and clean out your closets and your life will follow. I started going through the pantry and eliminating, going through the bathroom cabinets and reading, what is this
mm.
stuff that I'm putting to wash my hair and putting on my body, and starting to eliminate things
You
with.
decluttered your whole life.
Yes. And then it became the closets and
Wow.
asking, what is polyamide? Why am I wrapped in this? And starting
Totally.
to eliminate
Yes.
synthetics. And um, yeah, I just started slowly going on this healing journey. And it wasn't like all I
Amazing.
did was that and I was better. But it set me on a completely different path. And I think the biggest takeaway was I really started questioning what is in our food? Why
Mm,
is there this insistence that it needs to be sprayed with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides? My dad, the reason I grew up in Indiana, which I talked about earlier when we were chatting, was my dad worked for Dow AgroSciences and he helped, you know, develop some of these products that are used. And so I was always told the stuff is safe, it's approved
right.
by all, there's tons of regulatory measures to make sure these things are safe. But what I started to realize is they may not kill you in the dosages what we're receiving, but this small amounts constantly do affect us. And some people are
Over
more
time.
sensitive to others. Yes, and there's a accumulation over time.
Yeah.
And my body was saying, this isn't good for me.
Wow.
And I also started learning about the soil and realizing that the minerals and vitamins in our food come from the soil that they're grown in. So if that soil is completely depleted, our food is not going to be as nutritious as we think it is. And it really just led me to conclude I need to grow my own food and to
Yeah.
ensure that I know how it's grown and I know it's as fresh and pure as possible. Um, and So, like most people, I was working a full-time job, and the thought of growing my own food was pretty overwhelming. I was already pretty overwhelmed with even learning how to cook whole foods. And, before all this, my idea of a healthy dinner was a frozen pizza with maybe some vegetables on top, or like toast with peanut butter. And so, learning how to incorporate and get all of this food in my diet was pretty overwhelming. And so I think I Googled like what's the easiest way, like how to grow food the easy way,
Yeah.
and came across permaculture and the concept of a food forest. And that just really resonated. I mean, I was like, yeah, I love forests, and like a forest, every year the soil becomes more rich, it becomes more fertile. There's natural succession, so it's changing, it's becoming more complex and more resilient over time. It doesn't need people to come in and weed and till and fertilize.
Right.
It's a self-caring ecosystem. And
Mhm.
I love that idea. So I was like, I, I'm going to plant a food forest. I don't know how. Um, and I eventually purchased a property, and it was a pretty scrappy one with what I could afford in the state of California. Um, and it was a third of an acre. It had plenty of sun, didn't have the best soil. It was just pure sand. And when we
Right.
started digging, we started hitting chunks of concrete
Oh
and
my gosh.
almost discovering layers back there of like a time portal. Like we found like CDs and then later tape cassettes,
Oh my
like going
God.
back in time of
It's
just
like the city underneath.
yeah, just cleaning that up. But that was where I was like, this is where I'm going to build my my paradise. And so since the land was so degraded, in fact, the fence at the very back property, which is at the lowest point, used to be a foot above the ground. So that's how much over
Oh,
time just the sand has been blown away and washed away and eroded.
wow.
And so I thought, well, I'll build up. And so I put an ad on Craigslist for free dirt wanted. I had like a little sign.
I
And
love that picture of you with the free dirt. That's very
yeah, I
cute.
had my friend. I was like, can you take this photo of me? I'm going to post this on Craigslist free section. And I've since learned to be very careful about what you ask for. I should have asked for pure organic soil. I don't know
Right.
if people are just getting rid of that. But
Right.
and so I had this little write-up about this permaculture food forest that I was gonna build. And that is how I met Gilberto.
Mm.
So Gilberto was lived in the next town over, and he was on Facebook free section that day looking for specifically fruit wood, fresh fruit wood to carve into spoons.
Oh, wow.
That was what he, at the time, he's like, I'm going to master one thing in this lifetime, and it's going to be spoon carving.
Wow.
And
That's cool.
uh, so he reached out to me, and he actually didn't have dirt. He never brought dirt to the property or soil. But he had planted his own permaculture, his own food forest, and had taken a PDC and started growing calendula and kale and all these different herbs and really transform his own health. So he knew the power of the food forest and offered to help. And
Wow.
yeah, he believed in me, and he's been a part of the wild journey ever since.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's so sweet.
oh, yeah. And then of course too, this was all during 2020. So I put the ad in like January 18th or something, 2020. And and then we met shortly afterwards in January, and we're
So you
gardening.
met before lockdown.
So yes, and we're hearing that was back then when it was like the Corona-19 virus,
Yeah.
and we're hearing things, but people are telling us, "Oh, it'll never be in, it'll never make it here. We're
Yeah.
safe." And then sure enough, by March, it was the
March 13th.
lockdowns.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And about 5 years ago. And so the entire world is ordered to shelter into place. And it's funny because there's so many jokes about the toilet paper shortage, but I think we also forget there was shortages of everything,
Yeah.
canned goods, and it was a
Yeah.
scary time. No one knew if our supply chain was gonna hold up, and
Right.
just really seemed like a great time to have a food forest.
It sure
And
does.
suddenly, I was working online, but not having to do these long commutes, and we just put all of our effort into planting that garden, and I think it kept us sane. But it
Yeah.
also was there. I was outside in the earth, in the sun,
Hmm.
processing what had happened to me in the last 15 years, changing my habits, changing my lifestyle, my thinking, my beliefs, and overcoming challenges. And really with Gilberto's support too, to witness me, to support me, hold space, and also hold me accountable to we're going to build this food forest. We're going to get all this massive amounts of concrete out of here. We're going to turn it into the vision that you have. And yeah, so, you know, now I'm sitting looking at it and it's here. And
Hmm.
I've now been medication free for over 5 years.
Wow.
And it wasn't a simple process. I think stories can often downplay just the journey, which, as we all know, anyone who's gone through any health journey knows it's not a nice, pretty, tied up with a bow experience. It's usually messy
Right.
with a lot of tears and a lot of, regrets and things that we wish we did differently or things we wish we knew sooner. But
Yeah.
you know, there was another side to get to, and yeah, and I think one of the biggest things that this whole journey has changed, it changes how I view the world, it's changed how I view myself and how I view what it means to be well, and that, healing isn't just possible, but it's like our birthright. It's what if we let go of a lot of the resistance, it's what naturally wants to move through us. And I th in outside of Goldie Farms in the normal world, we were just bombarded with all kinds of stories.
Hmm.
And one of the things I love about having Goldie Farms, having this food forest, is it's a chance to be reminded of the stories that I want to live by and the stories that are true for me. And just the other day, I was picking calendula because this is the time of year that all the calendula is
Oh,
in bloom.
blooming.
And there are these beautiful orange and yellow flowers. They show up a lot in my videos, and the color
Hmm.
is almost otherworldly. It's like iridescent. It's hard to capture on camera. And they're wonderful for to take internally, but also they're my favorite way is the skin. They're really good for their skin. So we put it in our skincare products, our skin cream and Goldie Glow. And so I was out there picking them, and it's almost kind of a little sad to pick them because they're so beautiful and they open up with the sun. And so they
I
open and
know.
you just pluck them. I'm like, oh. And as soon as they're picked, it starts this process of breakdown. They start to dry and then we process them. And just the other day, I was picking them and I just had that embodiment of wisdom. It's one thing to know something, and like I know I've healed through connecting with nature, but suddenly there was this embodiment of as soon as I picked that calendula, the breakdown process happens. And I realized, well, that's what happens to us. We get disconnected with nature, and it's not immediately that you see anything, but then this breakdown process starts, and we need to be connected to earth to stay vibrant, to be whole, to be our best selves, and not just nature as in the earth, but even realizing we are nature too, and connecting to our own humanness and our own needs, our own nature, and
Mm.
really honoring who we are, what we're here for, what our needs are, and just finding ways to always maintain that connection, I think is one of the biggest ways I see the world is, you know, those who are disconnected, whether it's the institutions, whether it's, um, you know, parts of our culture, it's on a cycle of breakdown. And then those that choose to be connected to the earth, it's in a cycle of healing. And yeah, it's
It's a place where you can thrive. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm envisioning, thank you so much for that beautiful, just wow, what a story. It's like super profound. And I'm envisioning you for 5 years having your hands in the dirt, having your body outside for hours. I'm sure you were outside like 8 hours a day, maybe longer, because I know that happens to me sometimes, and I have a tiny little pocket garden. Um, and I'm imagining that is the healing. The fact that you were doing some serious earthing where you were just literally in the earth. And um your journey of food, where you realized food is medicine, uh also compounded with you being outside, and that's how the healing really took shape. And I'm wondering, did that also kind of, did you, from that whole journey in the 5 years with no medication, are you now, what are you choosing to actually grow for food? And kind of, has that also shaped that whole 5 years? Has that shaped you in choosing different things? Or um, do you like to have a variety of foods that you choose from and trying different things? Or what's your like take on just that little piece of it where you were actually starting to grow your own food?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it definitely has changed what I see as food. And it's funny too. We'll have friends come back there who maybe don't garden and aren't into all this. And not everyone sees the food or the medicine. And yet it's right now, especially there's arugula. I mean, you have to like it's kind of in its jungle version right now from
Yeah,
spring. And we let it just go wild. And then before the summer, we'd chop and drop and put that back into the earth.
yeah,
And so right now we're just letting it grow as much biomass as possible. And that biomass is right now cilantro, which is an incredible
love cilantro.
detoxifier. Yeah, it's so powerful. So we'll do cilantro juices and pestos.
Mm,
And then arugula, collard green. The collard greens are massive now, and kale, and so lots of leafy greens, which was something that, I occasionally used to eat salad back in the day, but now it's like kale, collard greens, arugula, chard. Those are daily. Make
hmm.
a ton of it and cook it
So
down,
good for you.
and it's so
And
so
that's part of
nourishing.
the brassica family of leafy greens.
Yes, collard greens definitely are. I believe kale is.
Kale, yeah.
I think chard too. I'd have to double check on chard. And what's wonderful is they're perennials. And so we focus mostly on perennials, which is also a big shift, is most of the food we eat traditionally is annuals. And annuals, I mean, we all love annuals, but they do require more work. You have to plant
Right.
them annually. What's nice about a food forest is we've now created conditions where the cilantro, arugula, those things just
They
self-seed.
just come up. Oh, it's beautiful.
And every now and then, you'll find a little melon, like, oh, this is growing, or the squash, because the compost, the seeds are in there. And
Right.
so if the conditions are right, it's growing itself. But perennials are also they're wonderful because they keep the soil intact. You plant them once and you're not having these soil
Right.
disturbances, which can interrupt the mycelium networks in there. And so that's really nice. And also, there's just food out there. It becomes a foraging instead of a labor. The labor is really right now just foraging and pruning and chopping and dropping.
Hmm. Yeah, I love
Forests,
chop and drop.
it's awesome. And forests do need management, stewardship. There's myths out there on the internet that, oh, you just plant it and you never touch it again. And it's like, no, we're
No.
out there tending and
Yeah.
cultivating and really sculpting the shape and helping create those layers. But yeah, what's amazing too is, for example, we planted a goji berry and now we have so many goji berries everywhere. And the berries themselves are a superfood, little berry.
I saw a video of yours where when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that bush is gorgeous. And I thought at first I thought, are those like cherry fall tomatoes or something? And then you had mentioned it was goji berry. They are gorgeous. And are you saying that your goji berry plant itself seeds as well? And so
It's
you
Yeah,
have
it's spread with runners. So
okay.
it anywhere that it touches the earth, it'll root down. So we'll
Wow.
pull those out and put them in other places. And it spreads and crawls. And the leaves are actually edible as well. They have to be cooked. And
Hmm.
so adding those to stir fries, but you never see goji berry leaves at the grocery store, but
Never,
super
never.
powerful medicinal food. And then of course we have the fruit trees and the olives. And I recently brined my own olives for the first time. I was kind of intimidated, but it actually was not hard at all,
And delicious.
and delicious. And so thinking through, we have almonds and olives for your fats, and then we have fruit trees for your sugars, and those are great for making juices and smoothies to kind of help, make the kale and the chard a little more palatable. But yeah, and then calendula was never something I thought of planting, but Gilberto brought some seeds. And not only are they great for protecting the soil, building soil, but they're I mean, it's this incredible reading, going online and just Googling benefits of calendula. And they have anti-cancer properties, they
Oh,
have
no.
all kinds of skin healing properties. And yeah, just so many of us are just not getting all these compounds from the grocery store. And
Right.
people ask a lot, well, what percentage of your diet comes from the food forest? And it varies a lot. It varies seasonally. At this point, 5 years in, we eat out of the food forest every single day.
Yeah.
Um, we do get freezes here where we are. So winter is a little slower, but there's still winter crops.
Hmm.
But in terms of the amount of nutrients and micronutrients and just compounds that I don't even know what they are, but there's this healing energy that's coming in. There's just so much coming from there that I didn't even know that I needed.
And I think it's an accumulation. That's where sometimes people find it overwhelming that, oh, I have to become healthy and start eating healthy and what have you. It's an accumulation of doing all these small, tiny habits consistently, and then, just give it a little bit of time and you'll see a change in just a month or two. Um, but it's those tiny habits that you can keep all the like forever. Like these are tiny habits that never go away. And then in 2 years, 5 years, you'll be like, wow, I feel amazing. So I did have a question about your 30 days.
Yeah.
So you said at 2 weeks, you had really felt a marked change. Do you recall what happened the third and fourth week?
I remember I finished 30 days knowing this is not the end, knowing I can't go back to how I was eating. Um, it was funny actually. I do remember I was at a dentist appointment, and you know how they check your numbers, how they're like two,
Yeah,
one, one, three. My
right, right.
numbers went a couple of the numbers went down, and the dental hygienist said that's very rare. And I was like, well, I've completely changed how I'm eating.
Wow.
She's like, oh, have you like lost weight? And I was like, no, actually, I gained weight because I think it's just you find what's healthy for you. And then there's so many layers too. Like you were saying, it's like one small thing sets you on a path, and it's one little piece at a time. Even just maybe 2 years ago, Gilberto was doing some research and came across nervous system health. And
Mm.
we were reading the symptoms of a dysregulated nervous system. When we look at each other, we're like, we have like all these symptoms. And what's amazing is the so many other remedies were out growing in the food forest, like milky oat grass and um, catnip, and even the native California poppies. All these are nervines that just
Mm.
help us stay regulated in a world where it can be hard to remain regulated.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's funny too. It's all been a bit of a blur. The last 5 years have just been just a radical shift. But one thing I do notice is when I go off and I take a trip or I'm away from the garden and kind of eating at restaurants and eating just back how I used to eat,
Yeah.
I suddenly become reminded of like, okay, being connected to nature, knowing what I'm eating, and even just rituals of being outside barefoot,
Hmm.
seeing the sunrise, going to bed when the sun sets. Those things are these little habits that have just really transformed the way that I show up in the world. And then that leads to just a whole different experience.
Wow. I I find some of your videos specifically and by the way, Erin's videos are just, I don't know who's doing the filming. They are beautifully filmed. Some of them are very cinematic. And I love when you run and like grab your camera and then you like run back. It's so cute. Um, that sun gazing video that you did was very meditative. And I'm curious, do you actually, this is going off the question, but do you do meditation? Because I absolutely am a huge fan of meditation, and it does directly work on your nervous system, and it directly affects, what you're doing. So I can just imagine you and Gilberto maybe meditating in the garden together.
He's really good at cultivating stillness. And that is something that I'm still working on. And yeah, I've had periods of my life where it's a sit down, quiet my mind, set a timer, and I think those are really good and really important and something I would like to re-bring back. A lot of it too is allowing myself like for example, we just planted a lot of little babies in the front yard, so they need to be
Mm.
watered in, and it's kind of time consuming just to check on them and water them.
What
And
kind of babies are they?
I planted some Santa Barbara daisy, some
Oh, how
rosemary.
cute.
I planted a bunch of things from my friend Catherine that
Oh,
she
cool.
always tells me what everything is, and I usually forget, and I have to ask her later, or use a app. And I really just work on just being fully present and not being thinking about, planning for the future, thinking about the past, and
Perfect.
just listening to what my instructions are,
Mhm.
basically.
Instructions from nature.
Yeah, because I'm always asking, and more I'm realizing if you want to hear the answer, you have to listen. And so I'm trying to, working on becoming a better listener.
Yeah, and I feel like from what I've seen of your videos, it's not even like it's not even you have to have a structured meditation where you sit down and block everything out. There is such a thing as walking meditation, and you probably do that without even realizing you're doing it. And it's just, yeah, it's just a beautiful place to be. And I think that um, the way it's grown from when it was first that flat lot, which is really amazing, even just for me to see as somebody who's been watching your videos. I mean, it's there's so much magic to it, and I can imagine the healing that is coming to you that's like emanating towards you from your surroundings. The energy that's in your backyard is probably just like this incredible earth energy. So I'm really happy to hear that you are medication free and feeling better and doing better. That's
Mm.
you healed yourself, which is incredible.
Thank you. It's funny, we were working with some kids and they called it, they're like, we're building a forest field. And I was like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly it. And there's even, I've heard that as you touch plants, the plants are sensing from you what you need and they're going and getting that. And, I come from a science background. And so there's this part of me that's like, well, where's the study?
Right.
But more and more, I'm letting go of that story that there has to be a scientific study for it to be real. That until I see evidence, I'm not going to believe it. And more saying, huh, is that what I'm experiencing? And yes, yes, I experience a very deep connection to the plants. I know I hear the birds when we're out there scattering seeds. I hear the birds are communicating like, "Hey, this is what's up." And
Okay, Erin, thank you so much for your very just thoughtful and very informative answer to question one. So we are going to move on to question two, which is if someone wants to start a food forest but has limited space or resources, what's the most impactful first step they can take?
Hmm. Yeah, I I kind of think I maybe went the hard way with my food forest, and I think maybe that's what I needed. Um, but I think most people think, okay, the first thing I need is I need to own a property. And actually, if I was to go back and do it all over, I would start gaining as many skills as possible before buying a property. For one, just to know what makes gardening easier, which is fertile soil, is so important. And here, it's taken us 4 or 5 years to get to this point where now what we put in the ground is most likely going to survive and we can support more tender species. Um, but that's partly because we started with such degraded soil. But if you have really rich, fertile, loamy soil, that's going to give you a head start. So even just learning as much as you can with or without owning a property. But even skills like
Mm,
learning how to turn one plant into 10 or 20 or hundreds of plants is such a powerful skill because if you're creating a food forest, you need lots of plants and you don't have to buy every single plant.
right.
So you can get one. So many plants reproduce from just a cutting alone. You just take a cutting, get it to root with some rooting hormone. Sometimes, they'll even just root by laying on the ground,
Hmm.
air layering. And so learning how to propagate. I even say too, if you have an apartment, if you have room and a sunny spot to put a big pot, you can even get a mini fruit tree, which we have a mini Garden Delight nectarine. It's about 3 feet tall. It's tiny and it is super prolific. It's beautiful. It's really easy to maintain and keep pruned. It's so small and you don't have to get up on a ladder. But from that one fruit tree, you can learn how to graft on other types of nectarines, peaches, and you can have like a little fruit salad tree. And then that's a skill that not only have you learned how to prune and take care and graft a fruit tree, but when you do have that property that you're stewarding, you've already have these skills. And so there's kind of a steep learning curve going from how I started with knowing nothing to, and luckily I had Gilberto to really help say, well, this is how to do this and how to do that. But we're still, it's an endless learning journey that's just endless. You could spend your whole lifetime just studying soil. You could spend your whole lifetime coming up with different centropic systems or different strategies for how to grow what you want to grow. And so just taking the first step to go down the path is, I think, the most impactful step. When it's a dream, I feel like a dream means it's so big that you don't know how to do it. It's just beyond, like when I started, I was like, okay, I have this dream, but I don't even know, and my dream was really Goldie Land, which was a much bigger version of Goldie Farms and
Oh,
had
that's so cool.
sheeps and camels and um, rivers and creeks and a pond and places to swim. And so I'm still not there yet, but I've taken the first step of like, okay, I'm going to plant here in this backyard and start learning. And yeah, the difference between a dream and a goal is a goal, you know what to do. You can break it down and be like, I'm going to do this, this, and this. And a dream is just so outside of our reality. It's just like, how do you
Hmm.
even know where to begin? And so I think really connecting with that me that's in that dream, who are they and how do I work on becoming them now?
Yeah.
A big thing with Goldie Land is I'm going to have to learn how to remain calm when things go wrong and remain calm as many, many different complex projects are unfolding at once. And so gaining that skill now, so I'm prepared. I'm the person I need to be as that dream
Mm.
because it comes to fruition. So yeah, just taking the first step, and I think acknowledging that that first step, there's not a lot of fanfare. It's not clear like you have now begun the journey. My journey to all this was learning how to cook sweet potatoes and eat different, and I had no idea what would be on the other side of those first steps. But yeah, it just takes that decision of like, okay, I'm going for it.
And I think what's very valuable in what you're saying too is there's a level of comfort and confidence that comes with, hey, let me step back for a minute before I even break ground. Let me look up some information. Let me look up what grows in my zone. Let me look up what I can do to amend the soil that I have right now. I think that, and then you start after you do a little bit of self-education, there's always just a little more comfort and confidence in breaking ground and saying, okay, I kind of know on paper, I know what to do. Let me now do it in real life. And I love the idea, and you've mentioned this before, in just take one little space. Make one little 3x3 or 4x4 space and like put all of your effort into that. Make it amazing and then see how you can now juggle another plate and go ahead and start another place next door to it. Because when you see a whole blank canvas, it's just like, oh my God, like you're looking everywhere, like where do I start? It's like just pick one spot. It's like pick one
Absolutely.
area and start and make it amazing. So you have that special, I'm forgetting what the word is, but is it the consortium where you're teaching on several of your videos about having like the tallest tall tree and then the shorter trees and then the bushes and then the little sections in the front, but it's all one area. What is that called?
Yeah. So in syntropic agriculture, which is a form of agroforestry
Hmm.
that they call it a consortium, and a
Okay.
consortium is not only what layer are these plants going to take up, like your ground cover, your tall tree, but also what function do they serve? Why are they here? Are they providing food? Are they making the soil better? And also, what's the lifespan? And so that gets syntropic agriculture is feels more advanced because instead of designing a picture, like a landscape picture, you're thinking movie. Like, okay, this is gonna be here maybe 2,000 years and maybe longer. Trees, like olive trees and fig trees can last a really long time. So you're thinking through how is this going to evolve over time and how do I design so that I always have something to harvest. All the functions I need filled are being filled throughout this long lifetime. And that does get overwhelming. And I think if you've never grown anything before, it's like, wait, what? 2000 years. And so in my course, I do teach starting with one guild. I call it a minimum viable
Guilds,
paradise.
that's the word
Yeah.
that's the word. Okay,
And
cool.
so it's funny because my background's in software design and UX design. And in more lean UX, we talk a lot about, um, or in any business, really, your minimum viable product. So,
Hmm.
what is something that you want to get to market? You want to test to see how it performs, get feedback before building out an entire massive ecosystem.
Right,
Ecosystem in
right.
terms of food forest, but in software, yeah, your whole software
You're kind
ecosystem.
of testing out a small piece before you
Exactly.
do put so much work into it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the same concept for your food forest. One guild is a group of plants that work together like a mini ecosystem. They fill different functions. So it can even be as simple as if you're planting a fruit tree, thinking, okay, I don't want this to land around it, this earth to be overgrown with weeds. So what can I put that'll be a ground cover that'll keep the
Mhm.
ground shaded from the sun, protected from weeds? Um, Maybe I want to also include some beans or some plant that'll help fix nitrogen.
Mm, yeah.
So really thinking through those relationships and planting your first one and observing like, okay, over the years, Gilberto and I have now realized, okay, these are the plants that we really like to work with. These are beautiful plants, but they don't really like Goldifarms. And so when we plant something, we instantly know, like, okay, I'm going to add a handful of these seeds, this, because over time we've really observed, and now it's just, and we're still always experimenting. This is just one big grand experiment, but
Hmm.
it becomes less overwhelming over time just by observing and even realizing what you have time to even care for. Because,
Very
yeah, if
true.
you've never planted before, it can be like, oh, digging a hole, especially depending on what type of soil you have, can be challenging. So maybe start with one hole and then see how you feel about more, or if you need to have a different strategy, or maybe even bring in equipment. And so it just allows you to lower the stakes and learn relaxed without getting
Hmm.
overwhelmed.
Hmm. Wow. And then, so, for example, what if somebody just had a balcony? What would your suggestion be with just, they don't have any land, that they'll never, let's just say there's somebody who, okay, I'm gonna live in this apartment forever. I love it. I have a great view. I have a balcony and I'm never gonna have land. What would you recommend somebody plant in that kind of a smaller situation?
Yeah, microgreens are
Mm.
awesome. So much nutrition in that little seed and right when it sprouts. And so you could do microgreens easily on a balcony. And then teas are just lovely. Like we were talking
Yes.
earlier about,
Hmm.
and the word tea, I guess it's technically an herbal infusion, but
Yeah.
if you can grow, just experimenting with what you enjoy drinking, maybe you like chamomile,
Hmm.
skullcap, catnip, peppermint, calendula, depending on what the conditions are in that balcony, just experimenting. And it's just a way to be very connected with nature. You're tending to your plants and then you're drinking them. And it's just such gentle medicine to drink
Right.
tea all day long. And you're constantly getting that infusion of all those flavonoids and different compounds that are in those plants. And
Mm.
what's interesting too that I didn't know until I started on this whole journey is that a lot of herbs and medicinal plants are pretty easy to grow.
Yeah.
A lot of them are pioneer species that just come in to try to heal this. They're trying to heal the soil, and then they have all these healing benefits for us. So, like some people may even be in, if they have, a little tiny patio or something, there may be medicinals already growing there, like stinging nettle, and just learning to identify what is this and do I want more or what can I swap out? And yeah, and then along with those herbs that you can have as teas, you can also make salves, so you can apply it to your skin. Salves are not very hard to make, and it's really powerful to something happens and you have like some weird rash or something on your skin, you put your own salve on it to see it heal so much faster. So
I love your Goldie Glow, uh, your beautiful little package, with the Goldie Glow. What's it?
the skin cream?
It's called Goldie Glow, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, I
Goldie
love that
Glow,
stuff.
Gilberto, he scattered calendula seeds from his garden across our earthworks once we'd finished them. And he's like,
Wow.
now you'll remember me forever. And
Oh, that's so
I
cute.
didn't know at the time what was happening, but he was scattering these calendula seeds. And yeah, now we're on generation, I don't know, they've been reseeding. And so he had been drinking them in his juices and smoothies.
Oh,
And I started
wow. Okay.
researching what else can we do with these calendula? Because in the first few years, the soil was so poor that it couldn't support what we have now, but it could support the calendula. And that's when I started reading that how good it was for skin. And I've had a long history of skin issues. Mental illness was just kind of the biggest battle, but it was just basically unwellness. Just I
Yeah.
wasn't as
It
well
affects
as,
everything, right? It affects your whole body.
yeah,
Skin is your largest organ, so it's like, yeah, I can only
absolutely.
imagine.
And I had been treated for acne with I'm blanking on
Oh,
the
like
word.
retinol or
No, not retinol. Antibiotics. I've been given
oh,
antibiotics for skin and was on those for way longer than I probably should have been. So
okay,
I
okay.
was looking for other ways to have really healthy skin and came across the calendula and started tinkering with salves and then started making face creams and yeah, just
Well, your skin looks amazing, so
oh, thank you.
whatever
Yeah,
you're
it's
doing is working.
just trying to have as pure, simple as possible. So we use
Yeah.
fair trade, organic shea that comes from a woman-owned co-op. We use organic jojoba oil from a co-op, organic aloe, the calendula. So it's just simple, as close to nature as possible is how I'm always trying to go with everything I create, and then anything that I use. I'm always looking for how is it in its purest state,
Mm, mhm.
which has been just a journey of discovering how even foods that we think, oh, well, that comes from Earth, but it's been so much of our food and things have been through processes that
Right.
change them from their original state. And
I'm sure you've experienced, I mean, I've had a tomato that tasted like absolute crap, like absolute
like
crap.
a bad water taste
I mean,
where
it was
like,
just awful. My husband and I, and he's Italian, so he's had tomatoes in Italy, um, which are absolutely beyond delectable, because they have a lot less processed land than we do here. Even when you're amending your own land and creating your own vegetables, you're still affected by so much that's in the air, even, and you do your best to make your land and your area as wonderful as possible so you can actually taste a tomato and what it really tastes like. But yeah, we've had tomatoes. I'm sure you've experienced where you've had a vegetable somewhere and you're like, wow, there's like zero flavor. Not even the texture is right, and the color is off. It's like, wow, what happened with this poor vegetable?
yeah. And it's wild you don't know what you don't know. And then knowing the whole, yeah, it's just a whole shift. And even our own chicken's eggs, the eggs have flavor.
So
And
different.
then I was out at a restaurant with my family, and there was a soft-boiled egg on my food, and I thought something was wrong with me. I was like, I can't taste this. And then I realized, oh, this is a tasteless egg. And
Wow.
what's fascinating too, um, 2 years ago, I was like, I think I need to get a permaculture design certificate. And so Gilberto and I did one together at the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center. And
Oh, nice.
it was really neat. And part of the activities was there was different local farmers that came in and we did a soil tasting. And they had it set up just like a wine tasting. So
Oh
it's in a wine
no.
glass. They add water to the soil and you
No
swirl it and you
way.
smell it. And we tasted food that had been grown in those soils.
Mm.
And then you smell and taste the soil. And yeah, you can pick up that the plants are picking up those flavors because all those compounds are in there. And it just really helped seal that connection of the soil is so fundamental to
Yeah.
food. And
Where it all
yeah,
starts.
our cilantro tastes very different from grocery store cilantro. And we've created our soil. So throughout the 5 years, one of the main activities we've done is the unglamorous process of moving wood chips. And wood chips are very abundant here,
Yeah.
and so we get them free. So whenever I hear someone getting their trees trimmed, I'll walk over, hey, can I get those chips? And
Right.
but that flavor, so we've had chips, somebody chipped a bay laurel, and that
Mm.
smell is just so
Oh God.
hard to describe.
Bay
Like
laurel is
it's just amazing
amazing.
smell. And so that has now become our soil, and oak trees have become our soil.
Wow.
And
Weren't you creating something with bay leaf?
I did do a Goldie Mountain Magic. There's
Okay.
four left,
Oh.
and so that was a limited wild harvested balm that I did with shea butter, calendula, jojoba oil, and then the bay leaves. And yeah, somebody described the smell as chocolate, but I would almost describe it as like fresh cacao. It's just like I had a like juicy fruit, but earthier. It's a
Wow.
lovely smell. But yeah, bay laurel has all kinds of awesome healing properties in it. And yeah, so just constantly nurturing that soil and building it over time. And it just
Yeah.
takes time and just seeing how, as the soils evolved, what's growing has changed. We've gone from star thistle to now our weeds are cilantro and arugula. And
Hey,
they've
that's a nice weed.
Yeah, it's funny because even the backyard is the food forest, but the front yard is kind of more of a traditional xeriscape. But
Yeah.
I've stuck in a pomegranate tree here and there, and
Right, right.
but yeah, now I notice more and more the weeds popping up. It's just little cilantro
Things that are
shoots.
yummy.
So yeah, so it's really exciting to see that.
One thing I like to, for people who have small spaces, and I'm sure you've experienced this in your grocery stores, but if you can grow herbs at home, you're going to save hundreds of dollars. Those little tiny plastic packets of like rosemary, you know, I mean, the cheapest I've seen is like $1.99, let's say, at Trader Joe's or something like that. And then you get a very small amount. And I'm thinking, wow, that is nuts. Because my rosemary, I actually ended up having to pull it out. It grew into a tree. Like it was almost,
Yeah.
it was more than 5 feet wide, 5 feet high. Like it was
Wow.
crazy. So I do, for my herbs I have, and anyone who doesn't have garden space, if you can at least grow herbs, which are so delicious, and tasting them fresh, like you were saying, your cilantro tastes very different probably from something you get somewhere else or at a restaurant or whatever. And It's just so easy. So I use the like a little stacked vertical planter. I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
called the green stock planter, which I love, but they have they came up with a new way of watering the planter. So you water it at the top. And what it does is unlike other planters, which only the top gets most of the water, every planter gets water because they created a drip system. So it's like this
Oh,
new, it's a really cool thing that some family created. And so I use that for herbs. And oh my God, you should see this planters just like everything's hanging over it. It looks so cool. So I just started it this year. So, but in a couple of months, it's going to be just like crazy. So, but yeah, I love the idea of even if you don't have space, even just a pot of herbs or tea, that could save you a lot of money. And it's so good for
yeah,
you. It's so much better for
absolutely.
you, healthier.
I'm so glad you said that because, yeah, when we prune, it's kind of almost crazy because the rosemary got in the paths. So I cut it back and I'm just putting like huge piles of rosemary in our compost. And the
Yeah.
same with when we prune our sages in the winter, we have lots of sage and
Okay.
we do white sage. And then I recently got really into bee bliss and which is a
Hmm.
native California sage and just the bees love it. So, but
Wow.
yeah, when I prune those, they get, 8 feet and then I
Huge.
prune them down to about a basketball. So there's that much sage. And I think of like, oh, this could be so many sage bundles and just
Yeah.
and we take baths in it and we try to use it, but most of it just ends up going back into the
Going back
soil,
to the
which is
earth.
why we
Yeah.
planted so many. A lot of the plants, I call them support species, are planted to create material to break down into soil. But yeah, even the olive trees, olive leaf tea is
Mm.
a really healthy tea that you can drink.
Wow.
And
I've never
someone
even heard of using the olive leaf for tea. That's
Yeah, it needs a little honey or, it's good to blend it with some other
amazing.
herbs. But yeah, I was gifted some. And then, I'm pruning the olive trees and just putting just so much olive leaves in the compost, being like, this could be a tea. This is a product. So,
Right.
so there's this, its nature is just so abundant and it changes that whole story that, in the grocery store, there's the scarcity mindset. Things come in
Yeah.
these tiny little plastic containers
I
from who knows
know.
where. And then in a garden, you just realize, yeah, that there's more arugula and cilantro and rosemary than we
Than
could
anyone could
ever
ever
eat.
eat.
And yeah, it's just a matter of, I've been inviting friends over, like, please take as much while you
Yeah.
can, harvesting it before it bolts and
Right.
finding ways to manage the abundance, which is just a whole new paradigm. And it's just a healing way to see the world.
I have a hard time when things bolt, I just love how they look. So I
Yeah.
have a really hard time. So, like last year, I think I just let everything bolt. I was like, oh my God, it just looks so beautiful. But this year I'm gonna stay better on top of things because I want to be able to enjoy the herbs as they should be. But oh, that was so funny. Um, what is that actually when things bolt? Do they now have the capability of reseeding? But
Yes.
you can't really eat that part or,
Um, we still we eat lots of blossoms. We're eating lots of flowers over
oh, I
here. It's
love
funny. I like
blossoms.
have these salads that are just like a bunch of flowers. I'm like, we're eating
Right. Like
flowers
chive
now.
flowers, have you eaten those?
Mm-mm.
Chive flowers, they're so good.
Oh, I'll have to look into
Is
that.
it chive blossoms or something? I don't know, but and wow, now I can't remember. It's like a chive family, but they'll get these little white
Oh, like
flowers.
the little like pom-poms at the top.
Yeah, yeah, when they grow really tall. And I was like, these are gorgeous little flowers. And I literally plucked them off and just threw them in a salad. They taste like garlic
Yeah.
and they're delicious.
Yeah, it's fun to eat the blossoms of the plant itself. And
Yeah.
right now the cilantro is about to bolt and I was actually just before this out there being like, we need to cut some of this back. And
Yeah.
what I want to be better about is selective, allowing some to bolt because the ladybugs are love the
I love
cilantro
it.
blossoms.
Yeah.
And we do let a lot go to seed, but we're at the point too where we have so much seed saved and out there that now we're being more selective of cutting things before they bolt because it creates a hormone impulse in the
Mm.
soil that actually tells surrounding plants like, okay, I can grow. So we're actually chopping and dropping
Wow.
a lot of things before they bolt. And then selectively, whatever plants look the most hardy, delicious, the best, we'll selectively leave those so those seeds get to stay and carry on at Goldifarms. So, yeah,
Wow.
and every year we're observing more and becoming more strategic about our management and how we want to define the succession path that's happening here.
Mm. Yeah, I'm wondering too, because you have a like the background that you do in would you consider that like programming kind of background?
It's more of design. Yeah, it's more of a
Design.
problem solving and
Right.
a lot of
And
those
that
design think principles.
that must have helped you so much, like transforming that, like transferring those skills to gardening. Because when I think about like there's this incredible intelligent network, and you've actually explained this before too, between all the plants and like what you can do and why you should plant something, why you should plant these three things together, like three sisters, that type of thing. And I mean, it's just the network is actually vast. And when I think about it, and I'm really thinking about it, like it's literally a spreadsheet. Like I'm seeing a spreadsheet up in the air, or like a some kind of algorithm, or some kind of organizational tree of like all these different plants and how they affect each other, how they affect the soil, how they create this abundance. And I mean, it's complex. Like
It
it's really
is.
complex. That's why I think your advice to learn and do things in advance before you even start is like actually having some education is key.
Yeah, and that balance too, there's theory and
Hmm.
then you realize, okay, I have all this theory, but food force is doing this other thing. And so yeah, having a just getting your hands dirty and applying what you're learning as soon as possible and seeing what works. What's interesting too is there's so much we don't know that's going on back there.
Right,
And there was a book I
right.
read a few years ago. It's an old book called The Rodale Composting Handbook. I think
Mm,
it's like the Rodale, yeah, composting book. And what surprised me, and that was back when I was having the question that all new gardeners have, or you say before you have ever planted something, you eventually go, what is soil? Like, what is this
right.
stuff? And why is it
Hmm.
so different outside than the stuff that my house plants are in? And the Rodale composting book really helped me understand that it's only fairly recently that we are starting to really understand what's in the soil. Even
Yeah.
when we did our PDC, we looked at compost under a microscope, and there were so many things that, what's this thing? What's this guy swimming around? Who's this? And this
Wow. I can
guy's
only
attacking this
imagine.
guy.
Yeah.
And they just didn't know. That we don't know yet. That's just some bacteria, some microorganism in there. And so even in our food forest, sometimes we'll plant 5 plants. For example, we're now starting to experiment with some subtropicals now that we've created
Mm.
more of a canopy
Uh-huh.
and our soils come along. And so Gilberto wanted to experiment with strawberry guavas. So pineapple guavas grow well here, but
Wow.
well, why don't we try strawberry guavas? And it's very interesting to try to understand like why are those doing well and this one's
Yeah.
not, and trying to piece it together. And
Sounds delicious.
yeah, yeah, and it's just the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know,
Yeah.
and that's okay. But it's also like anything, it's a relationship at the end of the day. It's any relationship. They grow, they evolve. Sometimes you think you totally understand the other person. Other times, you're like, I don't understand you. And that's the same with the food forest.
Right, right. Wow. Thank you so much. It's a very beautifully thorough answer. I really appreciate um, just the thoroughness that you go into, and I love your storytelling as well. So thank you for all of that. I will go ahead and start with question three if you're ready to.
Yeah.
Let's move to question three, which is, so you may have already touched on all of this, but it's totally fine. I'm going to just directly ask, can you share a moment when you witnessed nature working in perfect harmony with your food forest? And you can also feel free to share when it wasn't working in harmony.
Yeah. Definitely in the beginning, I was like, where is the harmony here? And the naivety, I bought all these little starts at a nursery, put them in the ground, watered them, just like, of course they're gonna grow, and they all died. These are our trees, pretty much all our trees have made it, but little starts, it was so harsh here in the beginning. And the summers here are, we get into triple digits regularly.
Yeah,
We don't have
dry
rain.
weather, right?
Yes, we don't
Yeah.
have rain for easily 9 months. And
Hmm.
in those first years, we were during a drought too. And one of the biggest things, the biggest first step was the earthworks. So we did a lot of earthworks, and we created what we call a water battery. And
Right.
so it's basically kind of like an underground river in a way, kind of. We have these meandering paths that are lower, and then the trees are built up on berms. So it's been
Hmm.
shaped up. And in that lower path, we filled it all with wood chips. And I don't know how many yards of wood
Loads.
chips. And now too, we have all our gutters from the house. Everything's goes into this wood
Oh,
chip
smart.
river that we call the water battery. And we were working on that uh, fall of 2022. And I was really wondering, is all this work worth it? And, moving all these wood chips. And then January of 2023, I'm sure you experienced, I think it was even worse up in the Bay Area, the atmospheric rivers.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah, California was in a state of
Deluge. Oh, that was
emergency.
crazy.
Yeah, it was shelter in place,
Yeah.
seeing people's cars just float down the
I think
road.
LA, that LA, that canal that runs through, like everything was like completely overflown, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, there's lots of damage. Surprisingly enough, Napa, where the Napa River rises, and it's like at 30 feet or some kind of amazing amount, but it didn't flood over.
Okay.
Yeah, which was like huge, and Russian River as well. It did not flood over apparently. So if I'm remembering 2023, yeah, that was a bad year though.
It was
Or good year,
crazy.
you could say good year
Yeah,
because we
it
were in a drought.
we needed the rain. We didn't need it
Mhm.
that fast. We got about a year's worth of rain in a day.
Yeah, I
And
know.
our next door neighbors to the right of us, there's 5 houses in the cul-de-sac, and all of them, their basements flooded. So everything in their
Ooh.
basement was damaged. And over here at Goldifarms, we didn't even have a puddle. Everything, just all that work we had done to shape the earth and send it where we needed it. And even now, more than 2 years later, that moisture is still in there because the
Wow.
wood chips, they break down into humus, which can hold 10 times its weight in water.
Right.
And then the trees
Right.
are up high and they can go in and find that.
So the tree's roots are actually at the right level with the humus, right? They're because your
Yeah.
trees are up.
Yep. They're
Your
up
trees
high.
are up. You
So,
made those cool bumps. I call them bumps, but they're berms,
yeah.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Berm. Yeah. Because,
Yeah, that's
you
so
know,
neat.
you don't want your fruit trees sitting in water because they let
Right.
root rot. So they're up and they can go in and find that. And yeah, it was just a reminder of the importance of really thinking long term and really looking at okay, what's happening on Earth? How's the Earth changing and shifting? And how do I design for the future? And how do I design for these extremes? How do I try and design for when all that water comes and to be ready to store it and have it? So that was really uh, exciting for Goldie Farms to see that, okay, the work was worth it and the
Wow.
design worked. And, when you haven't seen rain and as long as we go without rain, it's hard to even
Right.
imagine, like, how is this going to move right? And how is this going to be, is this even going to work? And it did. So that,
Did. That's exciting.
yeah. And it's exciting too to see the whole food forest kind of coming together as one ecosystem. And,
Mhm.
those relationships under the soil are building where when one tree needs something, another plant can help bring it what it needs through that whole mycelium network. And yeah, it's just exciting to see this ever evolving process right outside the
Yeah, and
window.
I think it probably for you, it must have been just a like, phew, like it worked. It worked, all that hard work because, like you said, even 2 years later, you still are reaping the benefits of the moisture, which is like really awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, this was not as wet of a winter as we were hoping, but
Right.
we've we continued to do things to get better and better. You don't know what you don't know, and hindsight's 2020. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that we learn, and I'm like, oh, I want to implement that. And it's just we're at that kind of momentum point too, where in the beginning it's you put in and you labor and you work, and now it's more of like us starting to reap the benefits, which feels really good.
Yeah. It's nice when you can take a step back from all that hard work you did and just actually, just allow it to almost like you said, there is management, but you can also allow it to, like, you can go away probably on vacation and then come back and, like, just, you're probably back in heaven and you're like, wow, everything looks amazing. This grew, this grew, this grew, but it's all good. There's no, like, severity of you having to come in and, like, put in 2 days of work just because you left for a week, you know? So I think having that rest, that little bit of rest, now that you've done all the hard work, that must feel just amazing to you.
It does. There's always things, Gilberto, right now. There's the back we're kind of working our way back, and there's always more to add and more to
Oh, yeah.
change. And it's
Are you
it's
working your way back to land that you haven't cultivated yet, or are you just okay? Because
yeah,
you have a big driveway, right? That you are you keeping it as a driveway, or are you gonna
we
end up
want
using that as
yeah,
well?
we want to use that, especially as things are changing. Um, I notice every year there's a little less calendula as we're now starting to get more shade and things are
Oh,
shifting. And
interesting.
so that driveway, it's just a we call it the driveway, but yeah, it's just like an open path that we left open so that we could back up and put wood chips and easily get in and out of the
Right,
space. But
right.
now, yeah, I'm starting to design and think through, "Oh, what I want to do with that now." And yeah, when you create a food forest, you're really stepping into a a dance.
Mm.
We all want like a beginning and an end, but it's really just there's just different
It's just the
stages.
middle.
Yeah, yeah, and just learning to really embrace that and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Wow, what a ride you've had too, huh? Amazing. It's amazing for me to see your initial videos that you had put together. And then I think you had done one that was kind of a compilation. And I mean, it's just unbelievable to see what you started with and what you have today is almost, and
Oh,
it's
thank
been
you.
5 years, right? Is it exactly
Yeah.
5 years,
It was
pretty
five
much?
years on January. And
Wow. When you
there,
start.
when we started, and yeah, there was also a lot of trips that we took where we're like, all right, we did our syntropic agriculture excursion into the jungle. We were gone for a couple months.
Oh, wow. Oh,
And
that
then,
was a couple
there's,
months. Wow. So you
yeah,
learned a lot.
yeah. And then working, we both still work full time. So,
Yeah.
um,
Are you still doing UX or are you
I
UX
do, but
design?
I'm definitely in a transition point, which I'm really excited about as we ramp up things here. And that's the goal too, is to really make this our full-time focus
Yeah.
and yeah, see how that evolves and grows. Because yeah, there's so many like there's a million different teas I want to make and a million different products and so many things, but only so many hours in the day. So
Yeah.
yeah, we're excited to ramp up, especially now that the food forest can support that, and yeah, there's just so much we want to do and share. And
Now, do you and Gilberto have you, because you both seem like very good at teaching, have you done any workshops or teaching at your personal garden?
we've done tours and workshops, and we now have an online course, and
Mm,
that's great because it really allows us to expand our reach.
yeah,
And we do so. So the online course. We've had people take it from Vietnam and Europe and all over. And, the plants are different, but the principles are the same.
yeah.
And so that's really neat to see how these same principles get adapted for different environments. And then, yeah, one of our dreams is Goldie Land and a place where we'd love to be able to host longer stays. Our
Oh,
month in the jungle was transformative.
I
And
bet.
so we'd love a place where people can really live in that food forest and spend time in there.
Wow.
We really dream of getting animals involved and
And are
having
you looking
sheep.
at land close to where you live now?
I don't know. That's the biggest question. I'm like, where is Goldie Land?
Yeah,
And we, what's nice about this area is we know it. And although there's so much diversity in California that even, you know, 20 minutes drive towards the
oh
coast
yeah,
is very different.
it is.
Um,
Have you
but
any chance any of your neighbors are moving?
oh, you want to move next door?
No, no, I was saying you can
Oh, keep
kind of
expanding?
keep an eye out for, anybody that's moving and maybe you can
Yeah.
use some of their land and that can be your kind of like because like I'm just thinking of agritourism that we've done in Europe and what have you, where you go and you stay at someone's farm and then you help them and they'll teach you a few things about how to do this or how to do that with animals or the gardening. But it's like a big thing, the agritourism. So that's kind of what when you were mentioning having people come and stay, like that's what that reminds me of.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, there's so many ideas. And I think one thing I'm really working on is just trusting that things will unfold. And because, yeah, there's so many unknowns. There's a lot of unknowns right
Mhm.
now, even in California with the recent LA fires. Just
Right.
brings up a lot of uncertainty about, and, what's the future of water. And right now, I'm taking a like a land water cycle restoration course with Zach
Oh,
Weiss, who
oh, okay.
his work is really incredible and has really gotten us thinking about just all the potentials there are to share how much transformation can happen when we really focus on healing the land and focusing on water. And water restoration is just another thing that I never really saw myself getting
Yeah,
into, but it's kind of the natural progression from a food forest. You realize,
right.
okay, yeah, if there's no water, there's no life, and
Yeah.
making the most of every drop here in California, but really thinking through how do we steward this resource responsibly. So yeah, right now it's a little bit of like a learning and exploring phase, and I'm just trying to be open to whatever is next.
Mm. So you put your thoughts, your ideas, your visualizations into the universe and you're allowing it to kind of take over for you, which is really amazing because that's when like miracles and stuff happen for people. What's interesting about what you said too is the progression from I find it fascinating. Like you become interested in a topic and then it's just the surface stuff, right? You're like, oh, this is so cool. I want to have this garden. I want to do all this stuff. And then you start unpeeling the layers and then you get all the way to now you're doing studies in water, like coming from this space of you just want to have a food forest and now all of a sudden you are a really looking into, soil restoration and then naturally progressing into water restoration and honestly our oceans need healing, so it's just it's amazing what one small thing can bring. So it's kind of really like just even listening to you, it's like your world is just huge. Like it's opened up so much. Just from doing that 30-day,
I know
trying
you
to heal
just,
yourself.
yeah, it's, yeah, it's just going down the path. And one of the things that's so amazing about dreams is you have a dream and you have a vision, and it could be so much bigger. Like Goldie Farms is so much beyond what I ever imagined.
Hmm.
Even in Food Forest, I didn't really imagine the depth of complexity, the amount of healing and what I'd be eating and how beautiful it is. Like I wasn't even able to imagine that far. And sometimes I often wonder too, is it that I wanted this, or was this like some kind of instruction I was getting on this is the way you go?
Wow.
And yeah, I have a quote on my desk that life itself is the most wonderful fairy tale. And it really is. We have no idea what tomorrow holds. And, you know, I think one of the things that's so hard about depression is you think that it's not going to get better. You think that it's just like things can't change. But the reality is things are always changing. And,
Mm,
there is magic happening all around us that we just need to learn to be able to see.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think when you do have a space, a garden space. And I like, and I think you've mentioned this too before, but I love to go, like I go out every day just to see what's going on. And it is amazing. There's change every day. There's change almost every second, change is occurring. And I feel like even just personally for myself, being able to embrace the change that happens in nature has actually made me a more resilient and fluid person. Like I don't get bent out of shape when things, don't go the way I was expecting them to, because it's not that I'm expecting it, but I know that, okay, this is just a shift. There's a different path. There's a different solution, like whatever it may be. But the gardening really helps you create your own, resilience. And it sounds like your garden just really, I shouldn't call it a garden because you really have like an incredible food
Yeah, but I
forest
love the word
garden.
garden. It's like
Yeah, and
wild garden, forest garden.
yeah, I love it. And I can see like really how you've even transformed since the first time I saw you on video, breaking ground. Yeah, and like I've told you this before, every time I see because I'll rewatch your shows and stuff, and I love the one where you mention about Gilberto, and that that you ended up being, you know, becoming a couple. And I'm like, oh my God, that one just, it's so heartwarming. I love it.
It is not expected too. I was
Yeah,
like,
that's so
yeah.
cool. And I think that was in one of your compilation videos. So I don't know how soon you started like being official or being a couple, but it was in one of your compilation videos, and it was at the end where you mentioned, I think that, you know, oh, it was kind of a, I'm trying to remember how did you say it, but you mentioned something about finding love or some, you were used some certain words that were just so incredible. And I was like, wow, what a story.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think just learning to allow is, because we're so trained that to have a plan and to have this, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and da da da,
Yeah.
and that just can prevent us from really being open to something so much bigger and so much better than we could have ever asked for. And, life never looks like how we plan. And,
Right.
even the garden, like, okay, yeah, we had a design, but these plants do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And, yeah, just being open to just being open to nature as a teacher.
Mm, um, awesome. I can't wait. I hope, yeah, I hope, I shouldn't say I hope. I know that you will create Goldieland. And I can't wait to see that journey.
I'm excited too. Yeah.
So let's move on to question four, which is what's one common misconception people have about permaculture, and how would you correct it? So I know you said you have your permaculture design. Is it design certification that
Yeah.
both you and Gilberto went to study and learn about it?
Yeah, he
So
has
what
two
do you think?
PDCs now.
What was that?
Gilberto has two PDCs now. I
Really?
think
So
he
you
just
can get
he
it in different just different types of uh processes or different types of permaculture?
I it's the same PDC. He just did it again.
Oh wow. Well, I'm sure you that to me that's something that actually is so complex. Like I'm sure you learn a whole new set of skills from doing it twice. You know, and it wouldn't hurt to
Yeah.
do that twice. But what would you consider like a common misconception that people have about permaculture? Or do you think that people are now becoming more in tune with that type of work?
I think permaculture can be hard to define, and I think a common misperception is that it's just a way to grow food.
Mm,
And food forests and gardens are definitely a beautiful expression of permaculture, but um, it's so much more. I mean, it really encompasses culture and the word permaculture, permanent culture. So it's really a set of ethics and design principles for how do we live on earth in harmony with the earth, in harmony with one another. Um, so that does encompass growing food because agriculture has a huge, huge impact on the earth, but so does the way we live. So
right.
how do we build houses in a way that's in in harmony with nature and design our communities and manage water and generate power. So, you know, it's really about thinking not just the status quo about what's sustainable, but how do we really live regeneratively, especially now that we're at a point in humanity where things really need to be regenerated. People
Yeah,
need to there's a lot of healing that needs to happen.
right.
And
So it's beyond sustainability, it's regenerative.
yeah, and I really think of it as a mindset, like a whole paradigm shift of how do
Yeah.
I design relationships that are going to cause regeneration?
Mm. And when you say relationships, you mean relationships in the earth, in the garden. But I'm also seeing like relationships with humans. It's like, you know, there has to be, like you said, a paradigm shift in society. Um, yeah, that's amazing. That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, because even, the water battery is really okay, designing for this relationship of okay, our plants need water, they don't need too much water. Our soil is super sandy, so it doesn't hold water. So, really observing all these different things and trying to put together a holistic plan for how it can all work together in harmony. And there's a video in the works on this little mud studio that
Oh, yeah.
Gilberto and I have been working on for 4 years, and we finally finished it in
Yay.
March. There's
Oh,
still details here
congratulations.
to go.
That's
Thank you. It's
huge.
120 square foot, you know,
So cute.
studio, and yet we made it out of clay, straw, and pallets. And
Amazing.
even that was just like this mindset shift of, yeah, how can we live on this earth in buildings that make us healthier? And,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
at
Yeah.
the end of the project, all the waste just was straw and some clay, and it just goes into the compost.
Amazing.
And so, yeah, really evaluating every way we live, but also, it's like this balance. I think we can get too vigilant and say, I'm only wearing natural fibers and I'm never going to eat anything that's not
Right.
grown with the pure. And we also have to find a way, like this is where we find ourselves. How do we do the best that we can with what we have, with what we know, and know that we're going to get better? Know that, okay, we just need to start going down the path that feels right and that feels aligned in our hearts. And yeah, find that way towards just the more beautiful earth that we all know is possible. And know that we'll make mistakes along the way and we'll learn from
Yeah.
them.
Wow. I so appreciate you have such deep knowledge and wisdom. And I just really appreciate your perspective and what you bring. It's really profound, is what I'll say. I just love to hear how you're speaking of it's to me it's so obvious that you have it's kind of like you've become one with the earth, like you're speaking as if you are earth, and you're like telling us like kind of what should be happening or what needs to happen in a way that's very gentle, and it's not like telling and scolding. It's just like this is what's happening under the ground, and this is what we need to do to make everything better. So I just appreciate your way of speaking about it. It's just
Oh,
beautiful.
thank you.
Really
I
beautiful.
appreciate it. Working with land can be humbling, and I've
Yeah.
been humbled, and I will be humbled again. And yeah, I've been in that space where I'm like we have to change, and people can't be doing this and that. And
Yeah.
I've just realized one, I kind of feel like resistance is futile. And
Hmm.
it's not that we need resistance, we need to find a new way rather than fighting. It's more
Yeah.
about surrendering to a different way.
I feel
And
like you are modeling it so beautifully. Like you're not you're doing it. So you're not even telling people what to do. You're modeling what can be done and what can be, the possibility of what can be done just by looking at your space, and what you've done with it is incredible.
oh, thank
And so
you.
you're modeling, which I think is like fantastic. That's the best teacher, is somebody who's really doing it themselves.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah, like I said, I really love your videos. They are just so well done. Do you do the filming yourself a lot of the time?
Yeah, it's just a tripod.
You're doing a
Yeah.
beautiful job. I
Oh,
love your shots, and I love the
thank
close-ups of
you.
the ladybugs and all that stuff.
Thank you.
Um,
My goal is to eventually get like a real camera. I started with an iPhone 6
oh,
and
wow.
now I'm
That's
on an iPhone
amazing.
10. I'm a little behind.
I think you're whatever you're doing, keep
No.
doing it. It
Okay,
looks
thank
great.
you.
Yeah, no, you're doing an amazing job. And I love the close-ups. And I can even feel through you looking through your like lens. Like I can feel the amount of love you have for like everything that you're filming. It's really just it's such a pleasure like to actually sit there and just watch your videos. It's so um, it makes me tired because you're like doing so much work. You're like, oh my God, this girl is like hauling ass. But it's like, no, I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. I enjoyed it. And you learn a lot. Like, I think people can learn a lot from just watching and observing somebody who's the model, who's modeling it. To me, you're almost like a modern day, you know, gardening, food forest mastery. Like you're a modern day person that's, taking it the next level. Like, kind of like a Gertrude Jekyll or Monty Don. These are like the big iconic, gardeners. And you're like a modern day person. You're just like a regular person that lives in California that had a dream, and now you're just doing amazing things with that.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I think you're a model for everyone who thinks, hey, can I really do this? And then they can just look at you and say, oh, maybe I can, you know? And the story that you're sharing about the healing, like that's even like the icing on the cake is that your healing has taken place throughout this whole journey.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's going to be a new chapter for Goldie Farms. I really stepped back for the last 4 months. It was going to be a month off, and it turned out to be 4 months off. And
Good for you. Good for you. You needed it. Your
I
body is
needed
telling you.
it.
Yeah.
And YouTube can be a scary place, and really stepping back and okay, like what am I doing here? And
Yeah.
even the food forest, I think now the videos will probably be less me working now that we're at this stage where there's, you know, I was just saying earlier, I was like, okay, I need to make a video of showing how I'm going to chop and drop these, and there'll be things. But yeah, the intense planting period is over, and yeah, I've taken more courses, I've read more books, and I feel more safe to share what I learned because in the beginning it was so much of like, I don't know if this is right. I hope it works. And now it is like, okay, it's working, and
Yeah.
I feel more safe to share what we're up to.
Right. And that ties perfectly into the last question
Mm.
is how do you see food forests playing a role in the future of, and I use the word sustainable living and climate resilience, but let me change that to regenerative living and climate resilience. So how do you see food forests playing a role in that?
Yeah. Well, what we're experiencing right now is something called the water death spiral. And
Mm,
so what's been happening is forests get cleared, and then the land is left bare and exposed.
mm,
Or as in cities, land is paved and
yeah,
drainage systems are set up. And so the trees are no longer there to shade the earth. The soil starts to get baked by the sun. It gets hard, it gets hot, pavement gets hot.
right,
And so when it does rain, water's not really able to infiltrate into that soil. It hits that hard surface, it runs off. This causes erosions, flooding, landslides.
right, right.
Um, and there's been statistics saying that about 98% of the rainwater that lands on California ends up getting sent right back to the ocean. So rather
Wow.
than getting soaked into the ground, recharging groundwater, filling up our lakes and creeks and rivers. And instead, it's just going right away really quickly.
Wow.
And that causes more death to happen because now the land's so dry. We're seeing, huge areas where just tons of trees are dying, which creates a huge fire hazard. So
Fire
now we
risk,
have
right.
these huge fires. I mean, fire has always been an important part of forest management and the ecosystem, but now they're becoming these massive events.
Yeah.
And trees also provide more than just shade. So in their leaves, they have these hygroscopic organisms that help moisture in the air condense into rain. So
Mm.
trees are actually calling in moisture from the ocean. They're calling in moisture and condensing that vapor into rain. And so now, we're losing all sides of the puzzle. And what I don't like about a lot of the rhetoric around climate change is climate change just seems so abstract. Like, okay, the climate's
Yeah.
changing. That's bad. I should feel bad about driving places. But when we really think about it as the water cycle and we see how many ways how we're managing water is backwards, like paving, piping, and sending it, dumping it back into the ocean rather than hydrating it back into the earth. It's just, that's the opposite of what we want. We need
Mhm.
it to stay in the land to recharge the groundwater. And it just seems like such a easier problem when it's something like water, when we really understand how important water is, when we really understand how important trees are. And, Goldie Farms is little, but even just the difference in temperature from walking around the house where we don't have trees and then stepping into the food forest, you immediately feel the coolness, you feel the
Mhm.
moisture, you feel just protected and sheltered in there. And one of the things I like to do is I look a lot on Google Earth. I love just like, what's over here? What's over here?
Right, right. Oh,
And
cool.
so much of California and so much of the world is paved, but also a lot of it is subdivisions, is suburban neighborhoods like this one, where it's just grass or it's just
Mm.
gravel, or there's nothing being cultivated. And I
Yeah.
wonder, okay, well, if half of those suburban lots planted, and it doesn't have to be fruit trees, but just plant trees, rewild it, bring in ground cover, bring in natives.
Yeah.
Yeah, fruit's great and food's great too because it feeds us. That would make such a massive difference. And it doesn't require political change or these
Right.
slow changes. It's just like we could just we could just do it.
Just do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so um yeah, planting a tree just feels good, It's just like
Yeah.
it's a good day when you're like, yeah, and then I planted this little tree and then I
Right.
gave it some friends around it. And so I love the idea of more and more lawns turning into native gardens, food forests. And then, not everyone has access to a property, but even supporting more agroforestry. And then agroforestry is ways of growing food for lots of people, like a
Right.
forest. So doing food forests on a more mass production scale. Um, so supporting that and realizing, yeah, these solutions are tangible, and even just seeing how much Goldie Farms has changed in 5 years with our nights and weekends kind of approach, and just scrappy. Like there, I didn't have a lot of money doing this. It was just as scrappy as we could get. The
Hmm.
reason why we use so many wood chips is they're free.
Right.
And so I just think of, if there's really a collective effort to reforest the world,
Yeah.
you know, the earth could heal so quickly. Like it really doesn't take that much time. And one of the things I learned in the water course, Gilberto and I actually went last summer and we saw Zach Weiss was giving a workshop up in the Grass Valley area. And so we drove
Oh,
through the
nice.
Central
Yeah.
Valley. Yeah, we got to meet him and meet a bunch of really awesome people doing amazing projects. And on the way up, we stopped at some rest stops and they had a placard explaining, the Central Valley, which now is so dry, it's so hot. We
Yeah.
passed through so many orchards that are just dead,
Oh,
areas that you've
sad.
seen that have burned. And these placards are reminding people, 200 years ago, this was a wetland.
Yeah.
This area, you could take a boat from San Francisco to Bakersfield
Wow.
like less than 200 years ago. And now that's unimaginable.
Mm,
And so, yes, this area has been degraded very, very quickly. But
yeah.
all we need to do is shift our mindset and start saying, hey, I don't want to support food that's grown this way. I want
Yeah.
to support this. And just even believing in what's possible and realizing that healing is what's just happening.
Right.
I think we're all healing in so many different ways. And so
And I like what you're saying because I'm thinking people also have to it is a mindset shift, but we also have to be honest with ourselves and with the world and realize that we are the cause of this degradation. And like if no humans were on this planet, Mother Earth would heal herself beautifully. She would have no problems. The oceans would heal themselves beautifully because there wouldn't be that human intervention in like kind of effing everything up, to say the least. So it's kind of like what you're saying is that literally, if each person would do a Goldifarms, and you could look at your Google Earth and there'd be a lot more of this beautiful food forestry, even if it's just a small piece. But if everyone is doing something towards that, being the fact that we all want to live here and still plan to live on Mother Earth, it's like we have to do something now because we are the cause of what's degrading for the most part. And now it's our turn to really help turn things around. So everyone can do their own bit, like do their own part with whatever land they have. And even like people who don't have property. I like what you're saying because we have local, what are they called? Like local kitchen gardens or it's like a
like a
lot.
CSA,
Yeah, it's like a
oh, community gardens.
community, it's basically, yeah, community gardens where, anyone can go. So you could live in an apartment, but there might be a community garden. Like it's just you have to find it and then you can become a part of that local community, which is, right in your own backyard. And you can go and make and pick fresh vegetables and stuff like that, which I think is beautiful. And I think the more we do that, the better for the earth.
Absolutely. And I think I've come to see humans as a keystone species. And Goldie Farms wouldn't be like this if it wasn't for a human intervention. And
Yeah.
there's lots of different thoughts on, what species and what's the most pure. But I really see humans as stewards of land. And I think what's gone astray is that colonization of our minds, where
Mm,
we see Earth as this thing to extract from. And,
yeah.
and even I still question like, oh, like, is it okay to be selling skin cream with my calendula? And like, and so I'm always cautious because, you know, it's going to take time and unlearning and it'll just take time to bridge us over to where we want to go. but I do see humans have this really special role of tending to a garden. And, there's
Hmm.
that saying, like, if it's not a garden, if there's not a human there, because,
Mm.
yeah, things will grow, but humans bring a special skill of really tending and cultivating um, and that's why I've come to think that so much of the change really needs to be of healing our relationship with ourselves and how we view ourselves. And even just, I think all of us have that fear of like, I don't have enough and I need to take and I need to protect myself and I need more. And
Yeah,
then we see the ripples of that where we've just taken and taken to the point
right.
where now there's like not going to be much left to take. And so yeah, I think so much of it is yeah, back to relationship. And I have a hard time putting the words together,
Yeah,
and of really that deep healing of like, I am enough, I have enough, and I'm safe on planet Earth, I think is like the
mm,
really deep healing of
yeah,
ultimately, yeah, so few of us feel safe. And, we do have that narrative of like, we've destroyed the planet and we're the scourge of the earth. And really healing and forgiving and changing and
yeah.
trusting that we're all in
Changing that
different.
narrative.
Yeah, and we're all in different levels of that. I mean, there's still like we still shop at the grocery store and we still like for a while I had the garbage service turned off. I'm like, we don't need garbage anymore. We're gonna live garbage free. And like it got a little out of control and the garbage is back on. And so,
Yeah,
because it's just trusting that we're gonna find our way to this more harmonious dance.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and it takes time.
It
So,
does. It takes time and it takes people like yourself to, um, model what you're doing. Because, I'm just thinking like if everybody would do a little bit of what you do, things would change, you know, the
and
earth would change.
there's different pieces too. I mean, I've
Yeah.
learned so much from people who maybe they don't know anything about growing food, but they've like things I've learned about nervous system healing. And there's so
Mm,
many pieces of healing for all of us in so many different ways.
yeah.
So yeah, it's an amazing time, I think, to be alive. Because on one hand, you can turn on the news and be like, ah, like
Oh, yeah. Don't turn
this
the
is
news on.
terrifying. And
Do not turn the news on.
yeah, yeah, that's the best. And, and yet, um, here we are, we've connected. And that was possible because of these crazy technologies
Right, right.
and all this industrial stuff. And even it was interesting when Gilberto and I did the centropic agriculture course in Chiapas. So this in southern Mexico in like jungle. Like we
Yeah.
took a plane, then we took a bus, then we took a little, truck, and then we walked. It was just like,
Wow.
and there wasn't there was electricity in one small area, but for the most part there was not electricity. It was pretty bare bones. There was no sugar, there was no hot water.
Wow.
And
And you lived there for several months,
it
right?
was a little over, it was a month. So the whole trip was 2 months, but we were there for a
Okay.
month.
And so you're
And
living and working on this, is it a farm or?
yeah, it was like a little community, very small, and we were installing a centropic agriculture farm, food forests.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
there it's, bananas, cacao, papayas, pineapple, all the tropical stuff. And it was interesting because, okay, here we are not having all these services and resources that we've get through a global supply chain
Right.
and you start to realize like, oh, well, it's really nice being able just to order things. And even our food forest, we we use gopher wire to prevent the gophers. I'm like, okay, all these come from this global supply chain, and that's really helpful. And we built Gilberto and I built a chicken coop together, and he didn't want to use any power tools, so we used all hand tools.
Really?
And then
Wow.
when we were working on the tiny house, I'm like, all right, we're using a other electric saw.
Right,
We used
right.
all power tools to build it. I mean, not a lot of power tools, but
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to build things with power
Right,
tools.
right,
So, yeah, I'm always cautious of like, okay, I'm really grateful I have these power tools.
right, right.
And yet they come from a system that I'm very concerned is
Yeah.
leading us maybe in not a good way. And so, yeah,
So, and
I
you
don't
also think about how you're using the power tools and like whose hands are the power tools in, you know? So so with the work that you're doing, you're using power tools to enhance and to regenerate, basically. You're not using them, you're not going into a forest and just like cutting a bunch of trees down.
absolutely,
So
yeah.
you're using it in the positive way that's actually going to um, kind of exponentially serve humanity by doing this in a very positive fashion. And so there's also that balance between, well, how much of this technology and how much of this, these amazing inventions am I going to take advantage of? And then where can I, have the balance? So I
Yeah,
really,
well
I
said.
am so impressed by Gilberto for wanting to like do everything without power tools. I mean that's like the Amish community, right? They don't use power or anything
He carves spoons, like the fruit wood spoons, and he doesn't use any sandpaper because he didn't want to use
to smooth it out.
to smooth it out. So he finishes it knife finish. So it's
Oh,
smooth
and they're
with
like super
knife
smooth,
cuts. They're
right?
super smooth. Yeah.
I've seen
So,
people carve to like a soft, shiny finish without sandpaper, and I'm like, how
yeah,
does that work?
it takes a lot of time. Yeah. And, and
That's
then I remind myself too, okay, like what are we doing on planet Earth? And I've gone down a lot of different paths of like,
scenarios.
yeah, or just trying to understand like what's the purpose of this. And
Yeah.
the one that just feels most true is we're here to learn and grow. And the only thing we can take with us when it's over is how we've transformed ourselves through this
Mhm.
experience. And so I think that gives me the most peace of
Yeah.
just trying to make sense of everything that's happening and just like, okay, but did this earth experience make me more loving, more kind, more forgiving? And then I feel like I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And feels right.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's almost like what are you, it is the question that a lot of people ask themselves, like, what is why am I here? What am I actually doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it's like you obviously, when we all, pass away, we go back to the earth, we can't take anything with us, right? But it's also like, what's your legacy? What are you leaving behind? And so I think specifically just speaking to you, like the work that you're doing is a huge legacy. And so you're leaving behind so much beautiful, not only beautiful work, tangible, but you're leaving behind knowledge and things that you've personally learned in your specific little piece of paradise. So, yeah, I think. I think that everything you're doing is just, to me, it's like amazing. It's amazing. It's such a, you're leaving a legacy, like to whoever it is. Like you're leaving a legacy to people that you don't even know. So, I think you can rest well knowing that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's reminding me of an email, the very first email Gilberto ever wrote to me. He said, and I'm not going to remember the exact words, but he said, I think you can gain a lot of wisdom from planting a tree under which you'll never know its cooling shade.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I love that quote. That's a
yeah,
very famous quote, right?
yeah. I don't
That
know who
is
said that
beautiful.
originally, but yeah, it's we may we we will never see the forests return to what they were before America became
Yeah,
before it all was clear, so much was clear cut.
right.
But what we do get to keep is the wisdom that's gained from being part of its restoration. And
Yeah, yeah.
um,
And the the health and wellness that comes from doing that work.
yeah.
Because I'm a big believer, and it's so amazing to hear your story because I just love, I don't know if you've seen the movie Earthing.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
it's
free
like,
on YouTube right
yeah, it's
now.
just incredible. That whole concept. So you've seen the movie, just the whole concept and the the examples of people in that movie that have been healed from just going back to the earth and getting the healing, because Mother Nature's healing and Mother Nature's love is infinite. Like there's so much abundance there that we can all learn and take from that without, you know, hurting Mother Nature. She has so much abundance, she has so much love to offer, but we have to also balance that with stewardship, which is what you're doing. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's just your story is really, really awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for listening and for asking me on and uh, helping me overcome my fear and resistance to just sharing.
Wow. Well, I couldn't tell if you had any, so you're a total professional. Is there any like last parting words or anything you'd like to share that you think would be helpful to anyone, or just even something fun about yourself or your future plans?
Oh, yeah. Well, big thing is goldifarms.com. We have a website now. And
Oh, awesome.
yeah, on the website, you can find links to everything to our Etsy shop, our courses, our channel. There's also a lot of free resources on there for starting a food forest. I have a lot of
Wonderful. Yeah, I've
guides.
seen that. You've got a lot of really good stuff.
Okay, good. It might
Yeah,
be
it's
too much. I'm
really good.
like, and this,
No, I
and
love it.
this.
I love the spreadsheet. You have like that
I got this.
spreadsheet.
I like
Oh,
spreadsheets
yeah, that's what I'm
too.
saying. Like it's so it can be like when you geek out on stuff like this, like you can open up this whole complexity of so many different things you can do. But I also love how you break it down to just, start a little guild, start one guild, start from there and enjoy that and work with it. So yeah, your teaching is just fabulous. I'm so appreciate your wisdom and your perspective and everything. But yeah, I'll definitely put in the notes for everyone like all of your information. And I wanted to add your Etsy shop, your banner and the way you created it. It's just gorgeous. Like it's
Oh,
really
thank
beautiful.
you.
And your
Thank
little
you.
tin of like your bombs. Did you create all of your own beautiful, everything's like perfect. It's
Oh,
so
thank
so
you. I
beautiful.
had so much fun designing those. After working in software for a long time, I was like, we need color and we need sparkles and flowers,
Oh,
and
it's so
it was
cute.
so fun. Yeah, thank you. I love doing that kind of stuff.
Well, you
Oh,
do it very well. You do it very well.
thank
So yeah,
you.
any last thing you'd like to add?
Yeah, yeah, just trust. Like I hope whoever's listening just trusts that your healing matters, your healing is happening, and it really begins with the soil beneath your feet.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, and I mentioned to you, I love to meditate too. I'm a meditator, and I love doing the meditation where your feet are on the floor, but you're visualizing roots going into Mother Earth.
Yeah,
So yeah, the soil is really, it really is kind of the key, right, to everything, pretty much. So thank
it
you so much,
is.
Erin. It's been like
Yeah,
so
thank
much
you for having
fun.
me. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this.
I loved this. I'm going to piece everything together and I'll have this ready soon.
I can't
But
wait.
I hope everyone had a wonderful time listening to Erin's wisdom, Erin's perspective, and I'm going to share all of your information so that people can check everything out. So thank you again.
Wonderful.
Bye,
Thank you so
everyone. I will
much.
stop recording. Thank you so much, Erin.
Yeah, thank you. That was really fun.
Hold on
Really
for
appreciate
one
that.
second.